From Wondery, this is a special mini episode of Imagined Life. I'm Liz Dolan. I'm the host of two podcasts, Satellite Sisters and Safe for Work. And today I'm going to be talking with the co-hosts of Imagined Life, Robbie Damon and Virginia Madsen. Virginia burst onto the scene in 1984 in David Lynch's Dune. Since then, she's proven herself to be an agile and disarming actress, turning in really wonderful performances in Candyman, A Prairie Home Companion, and David O. Russell's Joy. But she's perhaps best known for her role as Maya, Paul Giamatti's love interest in the 2004 film Sideways, a role for which she earned both Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations. How long have you been acting?
How long have I been acting? Oh, my. I think my first professional job was when I was about 19.
19. And you kind of come from an acting family, right? So was there just a love of acting in the house, everyone playing a lot of parts?
Well, you know, my mother's three children were very, very creative people, and she was a writer, and my dad was a fireman, a Chicago fireman, but he was also a really extraordinary storyteller, a man who would get up and sort of act out the parts, and he did great voices. And thanks to our mother, you know, she really encouraged us to do what we were really good at, and that was performing.
So you've played, though, Virginia, such an amazing variety of roles.
Yes, I've been blessed in that way, and I've been attracted to some very unusual projects because I really enjoy independent filmmaking. And as an actor, you can be involved in a project that becomes artistic. I feel fortunate, and I'm glad that I did as much experimentation as I've always done.
Do you have a favorite role that you've done to date? I'm always curious.
Well, I don't know if I could choose a favorite role because I've been doing this all my life. So it would depend on what decade it was for me. Mm-hmm. You know, like in the first thing I ever did as a leading actress was a movie called Electric Dreams. And
Right.
That was such a beautiful experience for me. Candyman was a great experience in the next decade. That movie has sort of stood up to the test of time. Sideways, of course, was
right.
one of the best experiences I've ever had making a movie. That was glorious.
Well, I mean, that was a super successful movie and obviously got you some very high-profile nominations. But what else made that so special?
Well, we shot it in the Santa Ynez Valley. Some people think it's Napa, but it was over the mountains in Santa Barbara, because that's where the book took place. And it was just an amazing group of people with, you know, Alexander Payne directing, and he and Jim Taylor wrote this screenplay that was almost poetic at times. So there wasn't a lot of work that you needed to put into it. You just needed to get out of its way and say the words. And everyone was chilled out, and there was a lot of wine drinking, of course. Well, it was research.
That helps with the chilling out, I find. Yes.
You know, it was just one of those things where everyone got along, like it was a real family feeling. And I rose to a different level of acting. I was ready to play that kind of role and to give that kind of performance. And it was just this beautiful part of the country. The lighting there is like no other place in the world.
That's interesting. Let's backtrack a little. So, Virginia, you grew up in Chicago. How did that shape you?
Certainly gave me a great work ethic. Culturally, there's a lot to offer creative people. You know, there's all this theater going on and music, and you feel like, this is a career that I can really make this happen.
I can think of so many performers that got their start in Chicago, like it's a safe place to experiment with things or to just form your own company and start something. It's still open enough to anything so that a lot of people get their start there.
Yeah, I mean, I went to an extraordinary acting school in Old Town and got some amazing training and had a teacher named Ted Liss, who's no longer with us. But he was like, no, this is your career. There is no stopping you. This is what you are going to do as your career. But you're going to have to work your butt off, and here's how to do it.
Let's talk about Imagined Life, your new podcast from Wondery, because it is just so unique. The way you tell the story, the way you lead a listener through. I am just mesmerized by these episodes. So I want to know, I mean, these are real people you're telling a story about. So how do you approach each of those? How do you get into the character?
Well, the hardest thing, I think, is not, I don't want to sound like the real life person, because the whole thing about Imagined Life is that you don't know who you, in quotes, are until the very, very end. But I love the stories. And because these are people so far that I've really looked up to and admired, to hear their backstory and things that I don't know about them, it's very inspiring. So I'm really enjoying it. And of course, as you know, I like a good story, and I like the idea of telling stories. I kind of miss that when my son is grown now, but when he was a little boy, I loved telling him stories. And so now I kind of get to do another fireside chat.
In a way, telling your son stories is probably more like acting for podcasting than movies or television, because it's the audio only difference. So a lot of the normal tools you would have in film or television, physicality, facial expression, wardrobe, you don't have any of those in telling a podcast story.
You're absolutely right. It's an entirely different thing working just by yourself with a microphone in front of you. It's a skill that has to be learned, and fortunately, I've been doing voiceover for a long, long time. The first time I thought I'd like to do it was when I was very pregnant with my now 24-year-old son.
So it was a while ago.
And I thought, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to work on camera, but my acting teacher always told me I could do voiceover because I had a really good voice. So I've experimented with it here and there and sort of learned over the years how to do it. So I'm really enjoying learning how to do this particular kind of storytelling. It's much quieter, and it's also just more my own personality. Everything I usually do is different characters. So I kind of like being Virginia.
Right. See, I feel like podcasts are the ultimate in the theater of the mind, because the story that you're telling comes right into my brain, through my earbuds. It's not like it's an animated thing I'm watching on TV. So it's even more intimate and personal, don't you think?
It's very intimate, and everyone will get a different experience out of it. And I like to feel that I'm, sitting by a fire with the person who's listening, just telling them this interesting story. And I like the quiet nature of what I'm doing. And I think, this is why people like myself and, so drawn to podcasts. We have such a busy, loud world that we're living in. So I'm happy to now be delving into that world.
Yeah, it's definitely storytelling that can completely take you away. I'm wondering, when you first get the script, when you read through a new script, do you know before you read it who it's about, or do you discover that as you read through?
I sort of don't want to know, but I have to know who it is because I have to be able to have just a little bit of their flavor, a little bit of their strength or their weakness, just a little hint of their personality.
Yeah.
Just a hint, like a little seasoning.
And a lot of the people featured in Imagined Life, they've gone through hardships and challenges like we all do in life. Does that help you feel the stories that you're trying to tell in Imagined Life?
I feel a lot in common with the people whose stories I tell. But I think that's why this podcast works so well for a wide audience. Because it doesn't matter who you are, all of us have a struggle. All of us have to climb to our success. It doesn't come easy for anyone. And, we have challenges in our personal life and in our professional life, and sometimes in our physical life as well. So that's why I may be telling you the story of someone who was very, very famous, but you're going to feel a kinship with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you do such a fine job bringing that alive for us. Have you listened to the other episodes voiced by Robbie Daymond?
Oh, yes.
They're great,
I'm
huh?
happy that when I listen to Robbie's, I really don't know who he's talking about, so I get the surprise at the end.
That must be super fun. So what else are you working on now that we can look forward to seeing you in?
I'm in North Carolina. We just are beginning to do a series on Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing?
Thing is... Swamp Thing's a DC superhero comic.
Uh-huh.
And I'm working with Will Patton, who I adore. I can't believe we've never worked together before.
Oh, fun. That's great.
So we've got a really wonderful group of people here, and I think we're going to make something really cool. And it's going to be streaming on the DC website.
How great for performers that, these new platforms exist for you to be able to do all different kinds of work. So you can be doing this fantastic podcast for Wondery and then off doing this Swamp Thing project that will be online. That's amazing.
I'm so grateful that I get to do so many different kinds of things. It's really hard to stay in the industry as long as I have been in it. And I feel very fortunate.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on all of this. It's so exciting to be able to listen to you on Imagined Life. I just look forward to every episode. And then to know that you have other new things coming up, that's wonderful. That we will always be hearing Virginia Madsen's storytelling makes me very happy. So thanks so much for chatting today.
Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it.
This year, you're determined to get your family and friends something they'll actually use for the holiday. A gift that really means something, and will take on even more meaning as the years go by. And then you find it. This is more than a gift, it's a unique discovery that'll help you celebrate the things that bring you together, and the things that make you unique. Ancestry. No other test brings family stories to life like Ancestry DNA. With over 350 regional results, 2 times more than any other DNA test. An Ancestry DNA test could tell you if you're from Sicily, Senegal, or Sweden, or all 3. Comparing your results, you'll learn a more complete story of you. Unlock the past, inspire your future, and celebrate what matters. Give the gift of discovery to yourself or share it with those you care about the most. Go to Ancestry.com/imagined to get your kit today. For a limited time, it's on sale for only $59, so you can get the perfect gift for the perfect price. That's Ancestry.com/imagined.
Robbie Daymond is the co-host of the podcast Imagined Life. Robbie is one of the most dynamic and engaging voice actors working today. He played Tuxedo Mask in the anime hit Sailor Moon. He voiced Michelangelo in the video game adaptation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's amazing. And has appeared in multiple installments of the Final Fantasy franchise. Robbie is currently the voice of Spider-Man, or should I say Peter Parker, in the animated TV show of the same name. So tell me about you, Robbie. Where are you from originally?
Oh, originally?
Yeah.
You do not know the name of the town I'm from. It's a small,
Try me.
It's a small little speck about 60 miles west of St. Louis, Missouri called Warrenton.
So what drew you to the voice acting field?
You know, I had this sort of eureka moment when my first year in college, this game called Final Fantasy X came out, and it was a fully voiced video game and a JRPG from Japan. Country of origin plus RPG equals JRPG. And I had this moment, it was 80 hours long, and the voice acting was really good. And I went, oh, this is going to be a thing. For sure. And I had it in the back of my mind all through college. So then when I decided to go to LA instead of New York, like most actors do, I made sure that I had a demo in my back pocket, and it was always something I wanted to pursue. And then when I came out to LA and discovered sort of what on-camera casting was like, I just got drawn more and more to that world. Yeah.
So what do you love about it? The voice acting part specifically.
It's the original colorblind casting, first of all. I mean,
Oh yeah, I never thought of it.
yeah, you can be any color you'd like, and from the whole spectrum, even purple, and yeah, you play characters I would never get to play in real life. You know, I play a lot of teenagers. You know, that's past me 20 years ago, and I still play those roles. I play big monsters and all of these sort of really fun things that require a lot of imagination and cold reading skills. It's just a blast for your imagination.
Yeah, I can see that. Is there anyone that's a favorite or a certain category that's a favorite? Like, oh yeah, I'm down with the monsters. The monsters are my thing.
Yeah, you know, I play a lot of young heroes. Like right now, I'm currently the voice of Spider-Man for all of the Marvel animated universe. So any cartoons they have on there, that's
Okay, that is just an amazing credit, being the voice of Spider-Man.
You know, I used to not have a good answer to that about 4 years ago because I would have to ask someone, well, what do you know? What are you into? What do your kids play? Or what do you know? And it was tougher, but now I have Spider-Man. Everybody knows Spider-Man. So that's an easy one.
Yeah, everybody knows Spider-Man. So, you know, listening to the podcast, you're just an amazing storyteller. And it feels like you really do inhabit the world of each character as you're telling their story. So where does that come from? Is that just what you've been learning your whole career, getting better and better at that?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's so nice.
Well, I mean, I'm a podcast junkie. Literally, I listen to everything. And this show is fascinating to me.
Well, you know, I'm a classically trained actor, so a lot of it is about what's on the page. I got copy, and I looked at it and went, oh, this is unique. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's written in second person, which is you don't see very often one way or the other. Immediately, the story grabbed me. So when I started reading for it, it felt right. And then through very skillful guidance, I think, via the directors, we were able to find a nice tone.
So when you read through it the first time, did you know who it was going to turn out to be? When you got the original script, or did you have the experience that we as listeners have, where you figured it out by the end?
Listen, I was a very impatient kid and an impatient adult.
So you jumped right to the end?
I was the skip to the chapter guy. Like I needed to know what happened. So I might have skimmed before I read.
You might have.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to know in order to play little moments. It's a fine line. It's like when you get any kind of script for a television or a movie or whatever. If your character has a secret, and the secret on this show is you're not supposed to know who you are. It's a fine line between showing your hand too much but still giving the audience a few little breadcrumbs to follow. And I think that translates to this podcast as well.
So how do you describe it to people when you say, oh, I'm doing this new podcast called Imagine Life? You can't say it's a bio of blah, 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 because you can't reveal who blah, blah, blah is, right? And it's told from such a unique point of view where you are me or the person, whatever. So when your friends say, what is this thing?
Yeah, I tell them it's sort of it's a second person biographical guessing game where you sort of transport the listener and you get to experience life from their perspective. And which is, obviously, according to some of the reviews that I've read, why people gravitate toward it. And I think the whole point of the show is to transport people. And the second person is a real form of that.
But you just don't want to give away who your first couple of episodes are.
No, I have all of that under lock and key. Yeah, totally.
So these are real people you're telling the story about.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that change your approach versus a created character?
Well, thankfully, the first few that we've worked on so far, I was familiar with them. I'm a fan of the people that we've been working on so far, including ones that haven't been released yet. So that was nice. But the way the show is structured, even I learned a lot as it went along. That part of it was really enjoyable for me because it is written. These moments are more intimate moments in their life. So that part of it's really enjoyable for me as a narrator.
So you're imagining their emotional journey because that's what's in the script,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not voicing them. You're voicing what's in your imagination.
That's
right?
true. And we have moments of sort of created dialogue based on research from the people that are writing it of what may have been said in a certain moment or whatever. And we have small little bits of dialogue, and we try to give those characters a voice as well and make sure that they're true to how they've been described in other biographies or wherever the source material is coming from.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think podcasts are really the ultimate in the theater of the mind because the story you're telling is coming directly into my earbuds, right? And I'm not looking at anything. It's not, an animated feature of any kind. It's really just you in my head. Do you think about it that way? Because you have a lot of power when you think about it that way.
Sure. I've spent a fair amount of my career in performance for younger people as well. Like I'd say a good 75% of what I've done is for, young adult readers and cartoons and stuff. So I'm very careful about the way I present the story as it's being told. But usually if the material's good, like this is, then you don't really have to worry about that. And you stay true to what's on the page. And ultimately, it should come across to the listeners as something that they either connect to or they don't. Sounds like people are connecting to this. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, it really does. Have you listened to the other episodes voiced by Virginia Madsen?
I have. It's the same style, but they're different. We're definitely each doing our own thing. But so far, the way that it's produced, I think it just sounds so good and unique from each of us. It's great. Virginia sounds absolutely fantastic. What a great person to have as a co-host.
So let's talk a little bit more about how you grew up and where you grew up. I understand you're part Native American.
I am, yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, that's tough because my bio dad left when I was little. Classic went to the grocery store and never came back story.
Oh, really?
I know, but we knew enough about his history to sort of know what I was. And then we had a guess. And it's tough because when you're not raised in that culture, and when you're from rural Missouri and your skin is as brown as mine, you're different, but to not be connected to your culture is it's a very interesting thing for a child to go through. I got adopted by my mother's second husband, and I call him Dad. He's just the best. But as I got a little bit older, I wanted to find out maybe what more of my genetic makeup is, and I used Ancestry.com. So, they asked me, they said, "Oh, do you know anything about Ancestry?" I was like, "Actually, yes, I do."
Yeah.
And it helped me sort of pinpoint where we were from. And the great part is they have this regional encoding. So it just sort of solidified everything that we had heard through lore via what we knew of my biological father's family. So yeah.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. I was fascinated. Yeah, absolutely.
So have you studied or thought about sort of Native American storytelling culture? Is that something you've built into your career and the way you think about the work that you do?
Sure. Representation's so important these days. So I list my ethnic representation as part of who I am. And I think the experiences of meeting other Native actors or fans or people that's how I've been able to sort of connect with that culture. I miss the boat when it comes. I'm never going to be from the reservation. You know what I mean? But my genetic makeup and my connection to those people is sort of what drives me forward, and getting to meet them and hearing stories from fans. Like, it's so good to see someone who identifies and is represented in entertainment. And, you played this character that I love, and I would have never imagined them to be Native. So that part of it's really special for me.
Imagined Life really explores the struggles of real people. So do you think, how have the struggles you've had in your own life helped inform the way you approach the storytelling here?
I think any good actor draws a little bit from their personal experiences. It's a combination of imagination and the wellspring that you sort of have from your own struggles. So as I've been reading these other stories, there's always something that you can connect with. Like on the Outlier story, I know what it's like to be an outcast, especially in a small town. When you're from a town where you're the only person of color outside of one family that lived, that you didn't really associate with. Yeah, you can definitely feel what it means to be an outsider like that.
That's fascinating because you wouldn't naturally imagine that you would have a lot in common with that person.
Right.
And yet you do when you get into the core of the story.
I'm all about empathy. And I think that as you get older, you develop more of it. And that's why some of our best actors they get seasoned. You know what I mean? You can feel the empathy. They talk about the skinless actor that sort of bleeds and whatever. It's because you can connect to someone on an imaginary level. And as long as I have the given circumstances of what he went through, I can use what I went through to connect to that and hopefully give a performance that suits what's on the page. Yeah.
The skinless actor. I've never heard that phrase before. What does that mean?
When you say skinless, it just means we envision our skin as this sort of armor. And if you take it off and open yourself up, it's easier to connect with people and stories. And these are stories about people.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Right.
Great.
Thanks, Robbie.
That was a pleasure.
Robbie Daymond is the co-host of the podcast Imagined Life. New episodes premiere every Sunday. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Liz Dolan, and here's a preview of my podcast, Safe for Work.
Hi, I'm Rico Galliano.
And I'm Liz Dolan.
And we are the hosts of Safe for Work, the show about making your work life better because that makes your life better.
And that includes everything from giving you advice about how to avoid work burnout to how to fake an illness when you call in sick.
I find that calling as soon as I wake up is the key.
Hi, Liz. Yeah, it's Rico. Listen, I just woke up and I've got that kind of telltale tickle in my throat. It makes me feel like something's coming on.
See, dear listener, you've been listening for 20 seconds, and already you've learned a whole new work skill.
You're welcome. But for real, on Safe for Work, we reject the idea that workplaces have to be a soul-crushing hellscape where the goal is to make it through the day until you can retreat to your couch for a Great British Baking Show binge.
Just the opposite. When you have a work life that's satisfying, your whole life is more satisfying, and we are here to help make that happen.
And who the hell are we to work such magic, you ask? Okay, smart guy, how about Liz over here was chief marketing officer at a few little mom and pop shops like Nike, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and National Geographic, and she's co-host of the long-running podcast Satellite Sisters.
And Rico here is a former reporter for the public radio business show Marketplace, contributes to the Wall Street Journal, and was also the award-winning co-creator and co-host of the pioneering podcast, The Dinner Party Download.
So we are well equipped to help you love your work lives. Thank you very much. In fact, what makes us love our work lives is taking your calls about workplace issues, big and small.
My boss hired his sister to help out around the office.
Ruh-roh.
And she's just, doesn't know the difference between a Word document and her email.
We've also helped listeners negotiate raises, get promotions, and deal with evil bosses.
Amen to that.
But wait, there's more. In addition to hearing us squabble over which is the best snack to have at your desk, Cheez-Its,
Froyo.
whatever, every episode features a guest expert or a business leader or a noted super genius who will share their hard-earned nuggets of wisdom about the working world.
So if you need some advice about making your life a little better, starting with work, or you just need a few laughs to get you through the 9 to 5, we're here for you.
Subscribe to Safe for Work on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this show.
For those of you great guessers out there, let's put your skills to good use. Don't just imagine what it would be like to listen to any book you want on your morning commute. Make it a reality with an Audible membership. You can win 3 months of free listening to books like The Diana Chronicles by Tina Brown or Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future by Ashley Vance. So, how to win? After each Imagine Life episode, we'll give you a clue about next week's episode. Then, if you head over to Wondery.com/ImagineLife to submit your guess, you'll be entered for a chance to win your free 3-month membership to Audible. This week's clue is, you were a cover girl before you were a big screen legend. Have an idea? Go to Wondery.com/ImagineLife to submit your guess, or find a link in the episode notes.